Adjust your set. It's just the 77th hacking in to Tweed Street, Scotland, occupied. Pay no attention to the man wearing the balaclava. Do not adjust your sets.
Welcome along to Tweed Street, Scotland, occupied, or Tweed Street, occupied Scotland, everyone. I'm Simon Bridges, aka Peter. With me this evening, as usual, and a change from earlier on today when we had some technical issues, is JB Whitesnake. Hi, John. How
you doing? Not bad, pal. How's yourself?
Hi, good, mate. I'm good. We'll find out more about the technical issues a wee bit later on. With us for the show this evening, our guest is Bob. Now, Bob is relatively new to Twitter, from my understanding. And just like Street John, I've seen a new page starting, the pro-independence. I liked it. It was about poetry. It was IndyTales, it's called, and we'll find out more about it in a wee second. And then I thought, well, I'm going to offer the chance to kind of because I liked it and it interested me, to build up the page and get them on and find out a wee bit more about them. So, with that, just as the usual routine goes, John, you know how it goes, mate. I'll pass over to you, and you and Bob can get acquainted with one another and introduce yourselves to, introduce Bob to the guests, to the audience.
Yeah, special. Bob, nice to meet you. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much, John. How are you?
Not too bad, sir. Hey, tell us a wee bit about yourself and what you're actually doing.
Right, well, I'm a Dundonian, but I've been away from Scotland for a long time. I mean, I left Scotland 1980, believe it or not, 41 years ago. And I spent 4 years in France.
Was you on a ship, was it?
I was only 3 at the time. No, I was in my early 20s. And I spent 4 years in France, met my wife there, who's Spanish. And we spent a year going around Latin America. We were picking coffee with the Sandinistas in Nicaragua in 1985.
Well, he didn't start a war or anything like that. No, it
was something else, I'm telling you. It really was something else. But anyway, we got back. She was pregnant. And we got back and decided to move to Spain. And we've been in Spain since 1985. Lovely city called Cordoba in the south of Spain. Beautiful place. I'm very happy here. The kids were born here, grown up. One's living in Madrid, one's in Barcelona. And so I'm settled here, but I still love Scotland. And I still care a lot about Scotland. And the family who lives in Scotland lives in Errol. Don't know if you know Errol.
I know Errol, yeah.
The Carsagowry, aye. So I go back fairly often. Not recently because of COVID. Every time I've tried to book a flight, it's been cancelled. But the family, funnily enough, my dad's English, and he was born in the south of England during the 1930s. He's 91, believe it or not, and he's been in the SNP for many years. Was convener or something, secretary, I think he was, for the Carsagowry branch for a long time. So he knows a lot of people in SNP. Lifelong supporter of independence. My mother, even longer, since she was a girl, she's been a supporter of independence. So the whole family supports independence. And I really care about it. And you know, one thing that really annoys me, I'm sure it annoys you guys as well, is when you get accused of being, you know, a nationalist and you hate the English. And no, I mean, you know, I want Scotland to be independent because Scotland, as an independent country, could get shot to the Tories. And it could be a fairer country, you know, a country that shares its wealth and resources around equally. And it could make the world a better place, you know. But to do that, and you know what Peter was saying earlier about I'm new to Twitter, and to be quite honest, after a day I felt like leaving it completely. As this bloody horrible place. It really is.
It can be a bit of a bear pit, that's for sure.
Oh, there's so much crap there, you know, and I can't stand independent supporters attacking each other.
I know.
You know,
well, I think one of the best things you'll find is the block button and the mute button. They're your best pal.
Aye, well, you know, I don't think I'm well enough known yet to need them very much, you know, but maybe in the future. So anyway, I think that to win independence, we've got to get out of those social media bubbles and stop talking to people who already believe in independence and start talking to people that we need to convince to come over to our side. And I believe that fiction is a good way of doing that, because not everybody responds well to political blogs and speeches and tracts. And there's an awful lot of people out there that think that, you know, politicians are all the same, you know, I'm not interested in politics. But if you can connect with them with literature, with stories or poems, then I think that's a really good way to get into them, you know. So that's why I launched IndyTales, you know, which has been around for a couple of weeks. Well, 2 weeks on Friday. Yeah?
You were saying that you think this is Baroness Harry and Minion of the Canny Scotland News and the Big Lion News, working in conjunction with All Damn Scotland's Spoken and that. You're saying that fiction is a good way to bring things to life. Is that what you're saying?
Aye, absolutely, to connect to people. Yeah?
Aye, because some people don't think I'm real. I mean, do you think I'm real?
Well, I'm not sure. Who knows these days with the internet? You just never know. You could be talking to me from Russia and I wouldn't know.
No, I'm definitely in Scotland, but thanks very much. I'll be going to the Lords soon enough, you know. Anyway, I'll pass you back out to John. We're just interrupting this chat's with Pete Nats. I know you don't like getting called Nats and Nats. So, John, on you go. To you.
Interesting speaking to somebody that lives in Spain. How's things been since the events of a year or so ago when they had the bus sort of breakaway, and then you had the clamp down and that? Has things settled down, or is there still very much the Catalonians want to obviously still want to
you're talking about Catalonia more than the Basque Country. I mean, the Basque Country's the independence parties in the Basque Country generally win the elections, but they're settled into being part of the Spanish state, and they're fairly happy with that, I think. They've got huge powers. I mean, when Gordon Brown came out with the rubbish before the last referendum, the vow about Scotland being, you know, the most powerful federal state in the world or whatever.
Nonsense.
Absolute nonsense. The Basque Country's got a lot more power than Scotland has. It's got all its tax powers for a start, you know? So it's not so much the Basque Country, it's Catalonia. And I think Catalonia and Scotland are very different cases. And I don't think we should equate them.
No.
Because there is no doubt whatsoever, both within the United Kingdom and abroad, that Scotland is a country which belongs to a union. And as a country that belongs to a union, it can leave that union when it decides to. Right? Catalonia's case is not as clear. It's not as clear that it was a state the same way Scotland was before the Acts of Union.
That's right. It's part of a unitary state at this time. Whether it decides not to be part of that in the future, but as you say, there is people that like to equate it to it, but it is far different. It is a very different case. As much as we would like them to be independent, if that's what they would want, then it is a very different case.
It's also, you know, Spain's a constitutional federal state, so it's got a constitution. So legally, for Catalonia to leave the Spanish state, they would have to change the constitution, which is going to be very, very difficult. I think Catalonia, though, is a very good warning for perhaps the most radical elements in the independence movement of what not to do. You know, declaring UDI is not a good idea. It's not going to work. You've got to bring the people over to believe in you. You know, and we've done really well.
Right, talking about bringing folk here, interrupting here again, Bob. This is All Damn Scotland's Bolton of the Canny Scotland News and the Big Lion News, working in conjunction with Baroness Harry and Minion. Like the Tories and Labour, way before the lead up to the 2014 referendum, and way before that, centuries before. Now, we're imperial, you know what I mean? So, what's the crack? You've got a royal family over there in Spain, have you know?
Aye, we do. Aye. Not very much smaller though. It's not nearly as big as the British royal family. Yeah? Right.
So you've moved from a place that had a royal family, You want us tell the people that live in Scotland to leave the royal family, no, not the royal family, the Union of Unequals. Is that about right? Have I summed that up about right? Can you see it says Caledon Media on the front of that there?
Aye, I saw that. Aye. Union of Unequals. That's very, very good way of putting it.
All right, aye. Well, thanks for that. I've something about him now. Can I get that? Right, John, back to you. Back to you, John. Sorry, back to you.
From another point of view as well, how is Scotland portrayed in the Spanish media at the current time?
It's ignored almost completely. They've got the Spanish telly's got a correspondent in London, and right. I watch the news in French as well, because I used to live in France, so I watch the French news, and that's the same correspondent in London. And both in France and in Spain, they use the words Britain and England
as one,
as if it was the same thing. You know, they just indiscriminately. Yeah. So Scotland hardly ever comes up in the news. It came up with the referendum in 2014. And I just want to clear something up. I don't know if you follow Paul Kavanagh, Wee Ginger Doug.
Oh, aye, yeah, very much so, yeah.
He's one of my favourite writers. I think he's very, very good. And he used to live in Spain, so he knows a lot about what's going on in Spain. And he's made the point very often, and I'd just like to reiterate it, that the Spanish government and even the right-wing opposition in Spain have never said that they would boycott an independent Scotland. And it wouldn't be in their interests to do so. As long as Scotland attains independence in a legally recognised manner, they will recognise it, because that way they can say to the Catalans, look, as long as you do it legally, we will recognise it as well, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Bob, this is Oliver Ned, the self-proclaimed Scottish historian. Now, I got my qualifications from Lucky Bag College, then I graduated with a Masters at Monsters University. What's your take on the clearances? Because I'm getting a wee bit of heat for my take on the clearances, so if you could give me your thought, please. Bob?
Well, yeah, I'm sure you know a lot more about it than I do, you know, but I think I was cleared. I was 41 years I've been away. You know?
Okay, John, thanks. So it seems I know more than somebody. Right, thanks, John. Question to you now.
Did you actually get to see any of the leaders' debates, Bob?
Not live, no. I just watched wee bits here and there on YouTube and so on. In fact,
sorry, carry on.
No, on you go.
I was going to say they're actually pretty poor. Actually, from my point of view, is Nicola Sturgeon's got nothing to gain and everything to lose. She's playing sort of amateurs, really. The reserve amateurs are not up to much. Unfortunately, she'd be better up against the likes of Boris Johnson, Ruth Davidson, all these ones. But when she's playing with these wee daft laddies that are just wee stooges, like, she's got nothing to gain in her. And I'm interested in politics, but I really struggle to watch these leaders' debates because they're absolute guff. And I say there's little to be learned and little to be gained. I think they're quite poor, but I believe they'll probably still serve a purpose to somebody. But I think you're not learning anything new. It's reinforcing what you already know.
Absolutely, but at least you're getting the comic element, you know, with Douglas Ross, you know, and you know what was he? What was he? You just can't call him.
This is Fury's travelling gypsy first king here. You mentioned the name Douglas Ross. You're a wee bit well travelled yourself here, Bob. You know, you've done a bit of travelling. I'm a bit of a traveller, come from a traveller background in that, you know. And he keeps on running us travelling gypsies down. What's your take on that? Is there many, I don't know, the Romany gypsy travellers in Spain?
Well, I mean, I live in the south of Spain, right, in Andalusia, which is, I mean, basically what foreigners think of as Spanish culture, you know, the flamenco dancers, the singing, that's gypsy culture, right? And there's a huge number of gypsies in Andalusia. It's an enormous minority of the population. And generally, they have been, and still are to a certain extent, marginalised. They're poorer. but culturally incredibly rich, you know, and certainly I think in the time I've been here over 30 years, 35 years, certainly a lot of progress being made in terms of employment, education, and that sort of thing, you know. But getting back to Douglas Ross, what a tosser. You know, I mean, coming up with comments like
Let me
that.
look straight down the lens at you, Douglas Ross. This is an ultimatum for you. I'm coming after you, Douglas Ross. Remember, I'm an imaginary character. Come on, back to you, mate.
You're quite right about Douglas Ross. I mean, you've got to laugh when you see him on Twitter, and that was actually a good one somebody's done. I don't mind who it was that done it. There's actually a wee thing of him in Parliament saying he believes he'll be the next First Minister. He's got to say that, you know what I mean? But somebody had done it and put some funny music on it and a load of laughing after it. Like, I think it was a picture of Nicola Sturgeon laughing at Edith. Like, and it was really well done. And that, again, going on to what you were saying earlier on, a lot of people aren't infused by politics. And I believe the Unionists' biggest weapons they've got is apathy and indifference, and whatever medium we use, whether it be poetry, stories, whatever, humour for that matter, that's a good way to stimulate people's interest in it, because a lot of people just are bored by it, they're not interested in it, they're more interested in you doing the pub or going to the bookies or whatever. But if you can just twig something that rings a bell in their head, then that you're doing something right.
Well, that's what I want with IndyTales, you know what I mean? Basically, anybody that's watching this, IndyTales isn't directly for you. It's not for you at all. It's a tool for you to use to help persuade other people who are perhaps politically disengaged, not interested in politics at all, or undecided, or soft no voters. So it's for you to use this as a tool to persuade them to view independence in a more positive light, right? So that's what I want. That's what I wanted to do, and I reckon that fiction can do that. It can connect with people better, you know. So that's the idea, you know. So what, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the idea is that I've started off putting up a story or a poem, because I don't write poetry, but two poets that I met on Twitter, Stuart Patterson and the Indie Poet, have both. Well, Stuart's already put up a poem on the site. And the Indie Poet said I can put up a poem of his, so probably on Friday I'll put up a poem of his on the site. So there's a poem or a story going up every day from now until the election, right?
Right. Are you putting that on Twitter as well as on a website? Yeah.
That's on the website. That's on the website, definitely. So you'll find another story going up tomorrow. I've got 13 stories up so far. I'm not superstitious because I was born on Friday the 13th, so there you go.
You can't afford to be then, Bobber.
No, definitely not. I'll tell you something else. The stories, I want other people to contribute stories, you know, not just me. So anybody out there that fancies writing a story and putting it up, look on the website, you'll find my address, my email address, send me the story and I'll put it up on the site. And I want this to continue from now until the election, the 6th of May, a story a day or a poem. And then after the 6th of May, I'm going to continue it, maybe not a story a day all the way through, until IndyRef 2 comes round, and then really build it up strong again for IndyRef 2, you know? So that's the idea. And if you're thinking of putting a story up, I want you to make sure the stories are short. So far, all my stories are between 140 and 200 words. And the reason for that is I want stories that people can read on the bus, you know, on their phone, on a phone screen. It will take a minute or two to read the story, get the point across, nice and short, nice and simple. It's not great literature, but it can be amusing or it can be educational. Get a point across, and that's the idea, you know.
See how you're saying you're putting it on the website. Can I suggest that you put a link on Twitter each day when you're putting it on the website? Can you put a wee tweet out? Yeah, you will do that, and just put a wee link beside it so people can see it. The more where it's linked to social media, the links onto your site is even better, because
nicely linked.
That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing, John. So, like, in fact, several times a day, I'm putting up tweets with the links to different stories. So, for example, today, because of the debate last night, there were lots of tweets, people tweeting about how the word divisive is used.
Yes.
So one of the stories I wrote is a wee parable, if you like, about two twin sisters wanting to split up their birthday cake, and one of them accuses the other one of being divisive. And so I point out, well, if one person's being divisive, so is the other one.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have an argument with just one person. You know. So I've been retweeting that story a lot today with a link.
Yeah.
To anybody that's mentioning the thing about referendums being divisive.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually got it on screen at the minute. I've got your Twitter page that is on screen at the minute, Bob, just for any of the viewers. The link here, IndyTales.wordpress.com. I take it that's the website that you upload everything to then, Bob, yeah?
Say that again, which is the website?
IndyTales@wordpress.com.
That's it, aye.
So the link, you've got the link on your Twitter page. I'm just showing it at the minute. There's pages here. Obviously, the thing that drew my attention to it, I like a wee bit of poetry. I know that you said that you're not really a poet. It's not really you. It was other people that like poetry. But if there was, because obviously there's something that people remember in respect to the poetry. Well, Scottish people especially, with the bard being so famous. What would you say was your favourite bard poem?
I mean, I love literature, but I'm not really into poetry. And I think my favourite Burns one's probably Is There for Honest Poverty.
Aye. Aye, very good. What about yourself? I've never actually asked you that. I mean, I know that I'm going to stop the screen share now so that I've got faces on screen. What about yourself, Joe? Have you a poem that...
No, all the poems I know are dirty ones.
Well, that's pretty much what Robert Burns was like, you know.
Well, that's right. He said a lot of near the knuckle stuff. Hey, I mean, if you want some real hardcore stuff, you want to read that Bible.
Well, no, mate, no. I've been beat late too many times. I'm not planning to read none of that. So I know that you mentioned that you're in the lead up to the Scottish election. You're planning on doing a story a day. When do you think there will be a referendum for Scotland?
Well, I'm a member of Business for Scotland, and they're producing the Believe in Scotland website that's got incredibly good graphics that are really worth using, and they're behind the opinion poll that came out today, the panel-based one, and really good website. Believe in Scotland, definitely worth visiting. What was the question again?
I was expecting you to remember that. I don't know what the question.
I'm just testing you.
The question, I can't. I've laughed too much now. I forgot what the question actually was. The question was,
aye, when will the referendum be?
When will the referendum? That was the question. Aye, when's it going to be?
Believe in Scotland are saying probably May 2022 or September 2022. I mean, I'd like it to be, October, November 2021 this year, but May 2022 would be a good time. I mean, spring is a good time for a referendum,
And what do you think of the Alba Party? What's your thoughts about that, or ISP? Do you think they are a help or a hindrance to deliver independence?
Who knows? It's too soon to say, I mean, I have my doubts, I mean, I'm a member of the SNP, so really I should say 2 votes, both votes SNP. But it depends where you live. I mean, if you live in the south of Scotland or the Highlands and Islands, definitely both votes SNP, no doubt about it. Yeah. If you're living in Glasgow, I'd look at the opinion polls the day before and say, okay, the SNP is going to sweep the board in the constituency seats, so you can use your second vote for either the Greens or Alba. Personally, I would vote for the Greens rather than Alba, but I totally understand people who want to maximise the independence vote with Alba. What I hate is a few people, not many, but a few people in Alba criticising the SNP and saying that they don't really want independence. Come on! I mean, that's bloody ridiculous. I was at the count in Perth for the 2014 referendum all night long at that count, and it was bloody depressing, I'll tell you, as soon as the results came in from Click Manager, and and you knew. We stayed all night, and I was there with SNP people, and they were greeting, and they want independence. Nicola Sturgeon wants independence. So cut the crap about the SNP don't want independence and Alba do. We all want independence. We just got different opinions about how to get it. That's all. You know, so stop criticising each other and concentrating criticising the unionists and persuading the unionists to come over to the yes cause. And you don't do that by insulting them or by laughing at them. You do that by persuading them, you know. There was, Nicola Sturgeon wrote an article in the National earlier this month, and it struck a chord with me. And just to quote one line from it, she said, calm persuasion of our fellow citizens, including the many who are open to independence, but not yet convinced, is the way forward. And that's what I want to do with IndyTales, you know. So that's what I hope that people like you, people that are watching this, will use IndyTales as a tool to persuade their friends and their neighbours and their relatives and their workmates that are shy about independence, to nudge them gently over towards independence, you know.
And here's a tricky one for you. I know you're an SNP supporter, but do you think Boris Johnson or whoever will actually sanction a Section 30?
Yeah, I think if there's a big enough, why? Because it's so undemocratic not to do it. And also, I mean, just think about it for a second. If he doesn't, what's that going to have? What kind of effect is that going to have on the undecided in Scotland? Is that going to make them like the union more, or like the thought of independence more?
I think he's got the brass neck to try and stick it out for as long as possible. And with the help of the British media, they just want apathy and indifference to set in Scotland, because they don't need Scottish votes. They don't really care. They've never bothered about Scotland. And it's just how much noise we're prepared to make. But again, that's down to grassroots. That doesn't always come from political parties. So I really think it's a sticky, and that's what a lot of people, been on Twitter a long time now, since before 2014, and a lot of people who are impatient, if you might want to say it that way, for independence. They do feel that there's no urgency behind the SNP's drive for independence. And while we don't see the SNPs doing things on a daily basis or any way up front but deliver independence, you've got down there in Westminster, they're talking about legislating to take further powers away from Holyrood to stop them even holding a referendum. So it seems like we're playing by the rules, and they're legislating to stop us. They're moving the goalposts, but we're not even at the park yet. You know what I mean? So where would that then leave Scotland?
You're right. You're right. There's a danger, but there's a danger the other way as well. I mean, obviously, you know, the SNP come out with something that the mainstream media and the BBC can portray as dangerous radicalism, then they're going to pile on the pressure. You know, so. The SNP want to persuade the people in the middle ground. They've got to be seen as being very reasonable, which is probably a good thing that we've got Alba now, because Alba can do that, can play that hard man role. That the SNP
well, could maybe end up being like UKIP and the Tories.
Well, I see what you mean.
Purpose.
It could be. It could be.
Anyway, and on that note, it's time for some flag waving. We need to do some flag waving. It's time to call time. We're flagging offside on all the chat and that chat. So it's that time where we have to bring the podcast to an end.
Can I just say one more thing, Peter? One thing I didn't mention, that on the website as well is a page which is called Download and Print. So you've got A4s that you can, PDFs, sorry, A4 size that you can download, print off, cut it in two, and then use them, hand out stories in paper.
Right.
Because an awful lot of people don't like reading on screens. And I don't know if you saw the opinion poll today, the panel-based one. But the percentage of young people
that's
interested in independence, 72%. But the big problem, older people, 38% in favour, 62% against. Older people very often don't like reading on screens. So if you're wanting to use IndyTales to persuade your granny or your great uncle or whoever to swing over gently towards independence, then download the stories, print them off, hand them out, let them read it in paper. It could be a big help.
Well, I'll certainly be giving you a wee push. I'm sure Peter will as well. I've got a reasonable amount of followers on Twitter, so I'll be pushing as many folk your way as possible. And you're saying as many different vehicles we've got to help deliver people to the independence way of thinking and stimulate them a wee bit, then all the better. Peter?
Aye, it's true. I mean, you've got to have different messages for different people anyway, right?
Yeah, definitely.
This is true. Right, guys, I'm going to draw it to a close. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much, everybody, from Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, or Tweet Street Occupied Scotland, from myself, Cinnamon Bridges, from JB Whitesnake, my guest, Bob. It's been a pleasure, and I'll catch you all later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, adjust your sets. It's just the 77th. Hacking in to Tweet Street, Scotland, occupied. Pay no attention to the man wearing the balaclava. Do not adjust your sets.
This is Tweet